Nicholas Shaxson, Treasure Islands, Tax Havens, and the Men Who Stole the World. Navigate the murky waters of tax havens and unravel the intricate web that hides enormous amounts of wealth. As Treasure Islands, Tax Havens, and the Men Who Stole the World by Nicholas Shaxson uncloaks their dark purpose. Beneath the veil of secrecy, countries, corporations, and the ultra-rich exploit these jurisdictions to escape taxes, hoard funds, and manipulate the global economy. Learn how more than half of the world's trade passes through tax havens, how wealthy elites use them to maintain their power, and how the United States and the United Kingdom play a vital role in sustaining the spider web of offshore havens.
The dark side of tax havens. Tax havens use secrecy to protect their clients, making it difficult for authorities to access their offshore banking information. Trusts are another way of hiding the real information behind registered trustees and beneficiaries. This summary uncovers the inner workings of tax havens and why they attract corrupt entities. Tax havens have been a controversial issue for decades. From corrupt dictators to wealthy businessmen, people use tax havens to evade laws, regulations, and taxes. The primary reason for this is secrecy. Tax havens offer almost perfect secrecy, making it difficult for authorities to access their clients' offshore banking information. Another reason tax havens are attractive is that they don't cooperate with authorities from other countries. Unlike banks in your country, tax havens do not notify the authorities when money is put into your account. They only provide authorities with information if they already know about the specifics of your offshore banking, and even then, there's a process to go through. Even if a tax haven shares information with law enforcement, they still provide services to protect their clients. Tax havens have few causes, such as flee causes. If Interpol comes looking for your money, your tax haven assets will automatically be moved to another place, like an account in a different tax haven. Trusts are another way of hiding the real information behind registered trustees and beneficiaries. In a trust, the owner of the funds designates a certain goal, and there's a professional manager called the trustee. Tax authorities don't know who the owner is, they only know the registered trustee. Lawyers can't tell anyone who their beneficiaries are because that would be a breach of confidentiality. The real information stays hidden. In conclusion, tax havens use secrecy to protect their clients, making it difficult for authorities to access their offshore banking information. Trusts are another way of hiding the real information behind registered trustees and beneficiaries. This summary uncovers the inner workings of tax havens and why they attract corrupt entities. The Art of Tax Avoidance. More than half of the world's trade passes through tax havens where corporations use accounting tricks to shift their profits and taxes. Multinational corporations can choose how their profits are taxed and establish separate subsidiaries that own the rights to their brands. By doing so, the main company pays money to the subsidiary for using the brand, allowing the subsidiary to profit while the company pays the cost. Starbucks is a prime example of this practice. The company also legally establishes subsidiaries in tax havens to avoid paying taxes. The subsidiary is then supposed to pay taxes, but the tax rate is almost zero in a tax haven. Rupert Murdoch's media empire also illustrates the complexity of accounting practices used to report absurdly low profits. The book exposes the wizardry of these accounting practices and how corporations manipulate them to avoid paying taxes. Debunking the myths of tax havens. Tax competition is a baseless idea that masks the true purpose of tax havens, which is to provide the wealthy a way to stay wealthy. The arguments in favor of tax havens are hollow, and the moral arguments don't hold up either. Tax havens just create a free ride situation for those that use them and undermine healthy competition. The countries with the highest taxes in the world, including Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, still rank among the most competitive countries in the world. Tax havens only benefit the wealthy and powerful elites seeking to protect their wealth. The idea that tax havens are helpful in other ways is simply a myth. The truth about tax havens. Tax havens are not beneficial to ordinary citizens but rather a tool used by wealthy elites and big corporations to maintain power and reduce taxes. While apologists argue that secrecy protects powerless people against greedy governments, residents still have to pay normal taxes like those of non-tax haven countries. Tax havens only offer low tax rates and secrecy to non-residents, and the accounting firms, lawyers, and banks servicing them charge exorbitant prices. The idea of deferred taxes also provides big companies with interest-free loans from the government. Moreover, tax havens give wealthy people an opportunity to pay less tax than they should. Billionaire Warren Buffett's 2006 tax rate was lower than that of his office receptionist. All these reasons show that tax havens are not necessary for the regular economic function and are merely exploiting legal loopholes to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. The United States, world's most important secrecy jurisdiction. The Tax Justice Network's Financial Secrecy Index revealed shocking truths about the United States and its ambiguous stance on offshore tax avoidance. While the Carter administration created the world's first comprehensive survey on secrecy jurisdictions and urged the U.S. to lead the world in cracking down on tax havens, later administrations buried proposals that would have provided OECD countries with information about American-owned bank deposits. States like Delaware also provide immense corporate secrecy, allowing anyone to create a shell company for less than $1,000 without disclosing any information on the business or its owners. Even Barack Obama was criticized for focusing on Ugland House on the Cayman Islands, which houses 12,000 companies, when the real problem lies in a single office in Wilmington, Delaware, which houses 217,000 companies. The U.S.'s love for low taxes and small government seems to be fueling its reputation as the world's biggest secrecy jurisdiction. The British Spider Web. The British Empire's intricate system of tax havens, called the three-layer spider web, served as a money laundering tool for international bank assets totaling over a third. This web's first layer is comprised of crown dependencies, the second layer of overseas territories, and the third layer of secretive jurisdictions like Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Bahamas. It catches money from nearby countries, launders it, and finally funnels it back to London for investment purposes. The infamous Cayman Islands are one of the most well-known tax havens in the second layer. This system provides a means for drug lords and the like to mask their illegal transactions by passing their money through several different trusts and investment options in various locations. While the British Empire may have disintegrated throughout the 20th century, this web of tax havens has remained intact and operative, serving as a significant player in the global economy. Capital flight and tax havens. Corrupt politicians in developing countries conceal foreign aid using tax havens. This practice known as capital flight is a staggering $1.2 trillion in all developing countries, surpassing the total debt or official development assistance. Tax havens make the elites of several developing countries richer. For instance, Argentina's debt benefited its insiders. This problem is massive. The biggest source of foreign investment in India comes from the tiny tax haven of Mauritius.
Treasure Islands unveils the shocking reality of tax havens, showcasing how they breed corruption and perpetuate the wealth gap. Despite weak justifications by defenders of these secretive jurisdictions, Shaxson uncovers the true purpose of tax havens: to benefit the elite few while depriving countries of much-needed tax revenue. By examining the roles played by specific countries like the United States and the United Kingdom, you've gained an understanding of how the global spider web of tax havens continues to expand. The negative impacts of tax havens are not just limited to the rich and powerful, as developing countries suffer from capital flight and lost foreign aid. Armed with knowledge about the real costs and consequences of tax havens, now is the time to reassess and challenge their place in the global economy.